My name is Ava, and I'm 33 years old. The morning my father died, my brother changed the locks. I didn't find that out at the hospital. I found it out 3 days later, standing on the porch of the house I grew up in, my overnight bag in one hand and my key in the other. It didn't fit. At first, I thought I was just shaking too hard. My fingers were still unsteady from lack of sleep and too much coffee. I tried again. The key slid in halfway and stopped. That's when I noticed the brass around the knob was new, shiny, untouched by time. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. Through the frosted glass, I saw movement. The door opened just an inch before the chain caught it. My older brother, Daniel, stared at me like I was a stranger selling something he didn't want. "You can't just show up," he said flatly. "I live here," I replied. He blinked slowly. "No, you don't." Our father had been dead for 72 hours. And somehow I was already homeless. I had moved back into my childhood home 2 years earlier when Dad's heart started failing. Congestive heart failure, stage 3. He brushed it off at first. "Just getting old," he'd say. But I saw the way he gripped the kitchen counter when he thought no one was looking. I saw the way the stairs became an obstacle. Daniel didn't, or maybe he did and chose not to. He lived 40 minutes away in a gated neighborhood with his wife and 2 sons. He visited on holidays, brought store-bought pie, took photos, left early. I was the one who took Dad to cardiology appointments. I was the one who sorted his medications into weekly containers. I was the one who installed the handrail in the shower. When his doctor gently suggested someone should move in with him, I didn't hesitate. "I'll do it," I said. Dad argued at first. He hated feeling dependent, but eventually he agreed. The understanding was simple. I'd stay in the house, help him cover utilities and groceries. The house itself was still in his name. Daniel didn't object then. He said, "That's good of you, Ava." Good. Not necessary. Not appreciated. Just good. Dad's death wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. He passed in his sleep after a mild cardiac episode. I found him in his recliner, the TV still playing softly. I remember thinking he looked peaceful. I also remember calling Daniel. His first question wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was, "Did he leave anything in writing?" I didn't think much of it at the time. Grief rearranges priorities. The funeral was small but respectable. Neighbors came. Old co-workers, a few cousins. Daniel handled most of the public-facing logistics. I was too tired to argue. 3 days later, I returned to the house after staying with a friend. And my key didn't work. "Open the door," I said, keeping my voice steady. Daniel didn't budge. "You need to understand something," he said. "Dad's gone. The house is part of the estate now." "Yes," I said slowly. And until probate settles, no one can just occupy it. I've been occupying it for 2 years. He exhaled, like I was a child missing the point. "You were here as Dad's guest." "Guest?" I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "I have mail here. My driver's license address. My furniture. My clothes." "That's not my problem," he replied. Behind him, I saw boxes stacked near the hallway. "My boxes. You went into my room?" "It's Dad's house." The chain slid free. He opened the door fully but stepped outside, blocking the entrance. "You need to make other arrangements," he said. For now. For now." I repeated, "Until things are sorted." "Sorted how?" He didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a copy of what he claimed was Dad's most recent will. Everything, the house, savings, Dad's modest investments, went to Daniel. There was a paragraph about me. "To my daughter, Ava Reynolds, I leave $5,000 as a gesture of love and appreciation." $5,000. After 2 years of unpaid caregiving, after sleeping on a fold-out chair, next to hospital beds. After watching Dad's health decline day by day. You have got to be kidding me, I whispered. Daniel's face didn't change. Dad made his wishes clear. When? Last year. While I was living here? Yes. And he never mentioned it. He didn't want drama. I felt something inside me harden. Let me inside. I said, no, my belongings are in there. I'll arrange a time for you to collect them. Daniel. He looked tired, but not conflicted. You're not staying here, he said. I already changed the locks. I stared at him. You what? For security. For security from who? Me. He didn't respond. He just stepped back inside and closed the door. The new lock clicked like a verdict. That night, I slept in my car. Not because I had nowhere else to go, but because I refused to leave that street. The house had always been blue. Dad painted it himself 15 years ago. A soft coastal blue that looked gray at dusk. I watched the porch light turn off at 11:17 p.m. I watched Daniel's silhouette move past the living room window. He was inside my home, and I was outside. The next morning, I called a probate attorney. Her name was Marissa Cole. After listening carefully, she asked one question. Did your father ever formalize a caregiver agreement with you? No. Did you pay rent? No. Did you contribute to household expenses? Yes. Do you have proof? Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Then this isn't as simple as your brother thinks. Here's what Daniel didn't understand. Even if the house was solely in Dad's name, I had established residency. I wasn't a trespasser. I wasn't a guest. I had legal tenant rights, even without a lease, because I had been living there continuously, contributing financially and receiving mail. In our state, that mattered a lot. And more importantly, an heir cannot illegally evict a lawful occupant without a court order. Marissa explained it calmly. He can't just change the locks, she said. That's called self-help eviction. It's illegal. I felt something shift. You're sure? Yes. And what do? We call the sheriff. Daniel didn't expect me to escalate. He expected tears. He expected me to accept the $5,000 and disappear. He didn't expect a uniformed deputy knocking on the front door 48 hours later. I stood beside the patrol car as Deputy Harris approached the house. Daniel opened the door with visible irritation. What's this about? The deputy's tone was neutral. Sir, we received a complaint of illegal lockout. Daniel glanced at me. She doesn't live here. Deputy Harris looked at me. Ma'am, I've lived here for 2 years. My belongings are inside. My ID lists this address. I handed him copies of my utility payments and bank transfers for household expenses. He studied them carefully. Then he looked back at Daniel. Did you change the locks? Yes. It's my father's house. He passed. Do you have a court order granting you exclusive possession? Daniel hesitated. Well, no, but I'm the executor. That doesn't give you the right to remove a lawful occupant without due process. Daniel's jaw tightened. She's not a tenant. Deputy Harris nodded slightly. Sir, tenancy isn't determined by what you call it. It's determined by residency and contribution. Daniel turned to me, voice low and furious. You're really doing this? Yes, I said. The deputy gestured toward the door. Sir, you need to restore access immediately. I'm not giving her a key. Then you can either replace the lock now, or I can document refusal and escalate. Silence. Long and heavy. Finally, Daniel stepped aside. The deputy supervised as a locksmith whom I had arranged in advance, removed the new lock and installed another. 2 keys were cut. One handed to Daniel. One handed to me. The sheriff let me back in. Walking through that door felt surreal. My shoes hit the hardwood with a sound that was both familiar and foreign. The air smelled like lemon cleaner. Daniel had rearranged furniture. Dad's recliner was gone. Where is it? I demanded. Sold. You sold his chair? It was mine to sell. I stared at him. Probate hasn't even opened yet. He didn't answer. I walked down the hallway. My bedroom door was open. Boxes were stacked against the wall. Some were labeled in Daniel's handwriting. Ava, take. My closet was half empty. You went through my things to separate what's yours. You don't get to decide that. Marissa's voice echoed in my mind, document everything. So I did. Photos, videos, every displaced item, every missing object. Because this wasn't just about the lock anymore. It was about intent. The will Daniel showed me felt wrong. Dad and I talked often about everything. He never once mentioned cutting me out, never once hinted at resentment. In fact, 6 months before he died, he told me something different. If anything happens to me, he said one evening, staring at the ocean through the kitchen window, this house is yours too. Don't let anyone push you around. At the time, I assumed he meant emotionally. Now, I wondered if he meant legally. Marissa requested a copy of the will directly from the drafting attorney. That's when things got interesting, because the version Daniel handed me was dated 14 months ago. But there was another one, dated 4 months ago. And in that one, the house was split evenly between Daniel and me. Daniel never mentioned the newer will. He presented the older one as final. Why? Marissa had a theory. If he probates the older will and no one contests it, he gains full control. Most people don't check. I felt heat rise in my chest. He was hoping I'd walk away or not know your rights. We filed a formal objection to probate based on the newer will. Daniel was served notice 3 days later. He showed up at the house that evening, furious. You're dragging this through court, he shouted. You tried to erase me. I shot back. That version wasn't finalized. It was signed and notarized. He changed his mind. Then why didn't he destroy it? Silence. He didn't have an answer. The court hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, Daniel and I coexisted in a house filled with tension. He avoided me. I avoided him. We moved like strangers through shared space. Neighbors whispered. Some took sides quietly. But I didn't care, because this wasn't about public perception. It was about truth. At the hearing, the judge reviewed both wills. The newer one had valid signatures, valid witnesses, valid notarization. Daniel's attorney argued undue influence, but there was no evidence, just assumption. The judge leaned back and said words I will never forget. The most recent valid will stands. The house was ours, equally. Daniel's face went pale because he hadn't just tried to lock me out of the house. He had tried to lock me out of inheritance, and he failed. After court, Daniel approached me in the hallway. You could have handled this privately. You mean quietly? You didn't have to involve the sheriff. You changed the locks. He looked at me differently then, not as a sister, as someone he underestimated. The house eventually sold. We split proceeds evenly. I used my portion to buy a small cottage 10 minutes away, blue shutters, white porch swing, my own lock, my own key. Sometimes I think about that morning on the porch, the click of the new lock, the way grief turned into betrayal so quickly. But mostly I think about the sound of the locksmith's drill removing it, because that sound meant something. It meant I wasn't powerless. It meant law matters. It meant documentation matters. And it meant this. You can try to shut someone out, but if they know their rights, the door doesn't stay closed for long.